Recording in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody! And I have something very serious I would like to talk about. Okay? So, as many of you know, I'm an avid Nuzlocker, pairlocker, blind run, all sorts of stuff. And I love to watch content that involves Nuzlocks and the whole Nuzlocke community. I think that the Nuzlocke community is one of the best things probably the best thing to ever happen to Pokemon. I love people like kylee-nim. Maryland's pretty cool. It allows people like Nate Wants to Battle and Dookie Shed to reach whole new audiences. It's just a very fun medium in comics and on YouTube. But there's something I would like to address. This is what I like to call the hard mode manifesto. Here I want to show my fellow Nuzlockers, pairlockers, Wonderlockers, randomizers, every kind of variant that you have. Sorry for the crappy this. I want to show you 3 insights that I believe have never been connected in the same place at the same time. Okay? As many of us may or not know, the Nuzlocke challenge was not called Nuzlocke by its creator. The name Nuzlocke came from the fans when, as a name for this character, a Nuzleaf that had John Locke's face put on a bunch because the creator loved to put characters from Lost's face on Pokemon because it's funny to him. He also liked using green text and a bunch of other silly shit. It's a great comic. You should read it at Nuzlocke.com. But here's the thing. It wasn't called Nuzlocke. It was called Hard Mode. And it had only 2 rules. Now, most of us today know that there are 3 rules to a Nuzlocke. Catch, release, or box. Catch, release, and name. Naming was not in the original rule set. He just happened to name Pokemon every once in a while. Comedic effect, like Mr. Humpy. He did have it. Nowhere did he say anything about a strong bond with the player and the Pokemon, or anything like that. That was added later, and probably at fan recommended and stuff. He himself has never said like, "Oh, I felt so bad about this loss" or something. His character is the one that experiences all the trauma and stress. When Ruby's Beautifly dies, Ruby cries. Ruby does the whole scene and everything. It's dramatic. And it's even worse when stuff gets further along because it starts getting more developed as a character and deals with the pain worse and worse and worse as it goes along. But the creator himself never says anything about it. You don't see him. You see the character of the protagonist, Ruby. Ruby goes through the stress of losing Pokemon. The player does not, in this case. So please understand. Oh. My ears. So stuffy. Okay, I might sound different because I'm a little sick. And my ears are kind of weird. Anyway, the bond between the player and the Pokemon was not in the original Nuzlocke's concept. It was no part of it. There was no part of the original run before Beautifly that ever said anything about, caring for your Pokemon a lot and all that stuff. It wasn't a part of it. It was not the point. The point was not to roleplay. The point was to make it more challenging and go back and be able to play Ruby again without being bored to shit. And that's what he wanted to do, and that's what he succeeded in doing. That's what he succeeded in all of us doing. We'd just be doing normal run-throughs without knowing what a hard mode run is or a Nuzlocke or anything like that. If we didn't think about imposing challenges, Pokemon would die off pretty fast with us. Think about, would you want to play X if you, sure, the story is cool with AZ, but the story with Team Flare and everything, it's just, the friends and everything, it's for kids. Not for teenagers or adults or anything like that. They don't pander to that audience. They don't. Only thing keeping us is the culture. And the battling. So, player and the protagonist are separate. They are. The protagonist is a character and the player is you. And unless you're immersing yourself in role-playing, there's a separation. It's a third party. That's why in my Y run, I played it, I was myself, but I had a character doing the run herself named Alia. Okay? Oh, well, there's also the situation if you're doing TPP version 1.0 with the whole, robot, mechanized suit running around and doing whatever commands you put in. But usually there's, you get a sense of a third-party character with the naming of your character. Quiet and Tired and all those people. So, what's next? Yeah, so this will all be important later. I will reference the 2 or 3 main key aspects of our community and how it's divided. There are 2 main communities that I see, or at least 2 on a spectrum-y scale. There's the YouTube community, and then there's the comic story community. The YouTube community puts on these shows with live commentary and post-editing, which makes for a completely different culture. And then there's the comics and the art, and, there's very distinct differences. With the comic community, you'll spend 2 years on one comic for one run in one game. 2 years for one run. Not only can YouTubers do multiple runs in the course of a year, but YouTubers can do multiple runs at the same time. The amount of Pokemon you go through in those runs, the amount of experiences you see over and over again, it's completely different in the sense that YouTubers get used to it so much faster. And you see people people who have done a lot of runs, and they just get sick and tired of it. They just get so irritated by the time things die. There was this one dual commentary channel that I followed, where this one guy was so sick of Nuzlockes, even though he still did them, that when something died or whatever, he was just pissed off. He had lost all, happy emotion and was just angry at everything that happened. Because he had experienced so many deaths and he just cared about beating the game for the show. On the other side, we have noobs. We have brand new people on YouTube showing their live reactions, which is something you don't get in the comic community. In the comic community, you get to see characters have their initial reactions to losing someone, and it's traumatic, and it's, oh my god, and it takes forever for them to get used to it. But watching, Morgan, Nate, and Dookie have their first deaths on their own solo runs, it's pure entertainment. And, that's weird that we get entertainment off of it, but that's their job. Oh, there's my watch. Yeah, next time you hear that, it's going to be an hour into this, so this might go a little long. Where am I? Sorry, I have a list, but it's so hard to follow when I go off on a tangent. So, YouTubers, when they get into veteran status, like Maryland's a great example of things. In Maryland's videos, you see that he has a send-off for every single Pokemon. Every single Pokemon, he has a playthrough of, fan art and recap of moments in their life and everything, and it's really emotional, awesome stuff. But that's in the YouTube show. If you go to his live stream videos, it's a fantastically different perspective. Maryland in the live streams doesn't show that he cares all that much for his Pokemon. Usually you hear 20 plus deaths and think, oh god, like Projared style. But 20 deaths in Maryland's Wonder Wedlock, he's just like, yeah, I think I might not beat this one. And not like, oh my god, I've experienced 20 deaths. That's not how it works. It's not like Projared. When Projared's first first Nuzlocke is one of the most important Nuzlockes to watch in Nuzlocke history if you're on YouTube. Because he goes through every single encounter in the entire region that you can get to, fishing in every town, all that stuff, and he ends up with 4 Pokemon alive. 2 in the party, 2 in the box. He went through every single Pokemon practically. And it just ruined him. He was, oh my god. It was crazy what happened to him. His mental state and everything. He had empathy for about 80% of the Pokemon, which is a high ranking percentage. And it's incredibly high because he went through so many. Usually people get, used to it at that point, but he totally didn't. He was totally into it. Maryland has probably experienced at least 1,000 deaths in all his runs combined. And Maryland, he acts like he cares a lot, but in actuality, he kind of doesn't. It's kind of just a show that he puts on. The last Pokemon that he really cared about was, honestly, Turkey. And then Carrot before that, but I'll get into Carrot in a little bit. Oh, this is great. Okay. So, why is it that this kind of selective empathy is the bad thing? Because what happens is when YouTubers are new to this, they'll do one of few things. When their first death happens, they'll either be pissed the hell off, extremely sad, or they won't care. Because their first death very may well be the Pokemon that was there, like Bidoof, and they don't care about it. And they laugh at it. It's like, ha ha ha, it died. And then their starter dies, and they're like, they're flipping tables and shit, and it's, and I'm screwing up the camera. Point being, this selective empathy leads down a very troubling path. In comics, the selective empathy is it's just completely different. In the comics, everyone gets a chance to shine by getting a characterism. Like, you can have a Bidoof in a comic, and you can, make them up to be this great characterism and everything, and, you're not being yourself. You're portraying a character in there, and their character may or may not be part of the Bidoof hate culture. So the selective empathy, all this shit. What is it about Maryland that makes his run so different? He plays under so many harsh rules. No healing items, 3 healing items, wedlock, pairlocking, wonderlocks, and the fabled level limit. These conditions increase the mortality rate immensely, and with the more deaths, the inevitable is going to happen. You're going to get used to them. You're going to have not enough empathy to give. It's the same reason people swear off, relationships. It's like they get their heart broken so many times that they just can't do it anymore, or they just don't get that attached to people. Or maybe they do, and it's just, there's a lot of references in the psychology of Nuzlockers that will relate to real life. And there's even weirder ones coming down the line. So, why is that over time players should they lose empathy? Oh wait, I just did that. Fuck. Okay. The first timers will spend whole minutes in the party screen after some big surprise happens, and they'll be worrying. They're like, oh no, what do I do? What do I do? Will I have to sack someone or something? And they're freaking out. Veterans, though, they know that does nothing. That doesn't save lives. Freaking out. Freaked out only uses more brain capacity and leaves more room for you to forget something, like an ability, like a typing, like a move, like an accuracy, like a recoil effect, or anything. So veterans, when they get into that spot, they will go into this zone. Maryland does this a bit too. They'll be like, okay, shut everything down and just focus. What happened? This. And they go into this. Basically, sometimes there will be the blind, hopeful, like, high jump kick or something that's like, you can do this for the entire team, and they land it, and you're like, yeah, and you have that bond with them. But often, it won't be that kind of chance. It'll be, oh, I'll have to sack someone or something like that. And then at that point, yeah, you can, for the longest time, you'll be worrying, you'll be sad, you'll not want to do it and everything. But eventually, after doing it for years, multiple runs at a time, 1,000 deaths, it's going to get slightly different. And you're going to be like that one guy I was talking about who just was such a tryhard with it. He's playing a numbers game. It'll be like, okay, what do I do? What do I got with this, checking stats and everything, which is stuff that people can do and still roleplay. But sometimes, shit. Sometimes it's just different. There we go. Okay. So it's about the numbers at that point. You think that when you're Nuzlocker, this points where you're the most connected, strongest bond with your Pokemon, you think it's during the fight. But eventually that's not going to be true. It just isn't during the fights that you care the most. Maybe after you select your move or something, or the initial response, but when you are selecting that move, unless you're doing like a faith thing, very often, eventually down the line, you'll be very, you'll have this like zone you're in where you're like, blah, 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 blah. You're not like, come on, do it. You're like, well, let's see if it misses. Let's see if I hit myself. Let's see if I'm paralyzed. Let's see if blah, blah, blah. Let's see if we get frozen. Let's see if we unfreeze. Let's see if we wake up. It gets to this, Nate and Dookie have this a lot, where they're already, they're noobs and they're still already doing that shit. Just like playing the numbers game. Some people aren't cut out for role-playing and immersion. It sucks. Went over that. It sounds really depressing because it is. It's the challenge that makes us care, and it's what makes us disconnect. We think that we play the challenge, it's a challenge that makes us care for everyone because we have to spend more time with them and the whole run's about them. You don't want them to die and stuff. But the same reason you don't want them to die is so that you can win. At the start of your run, you're like, yeah, I don't want them to die because I like them. And then into your run, you're like, I don't want them to die because I don't want to have to train up a bunch of level 5s. It gets to that. Like, some people will actually, like Wonderlockers especially, like Maryland, they will actually think about deciding who to pick based on their level so that they don't have to waste time training. Especially if they can't play with the experience share. And this is where it gets a little trippy. Every time you go into that, like, Super Saiyan, Yami, Super Soldier kind of mode, it gets harder to leave it. The kind of simulated stress that people feel in these extreme, like, not life or death moments for one Pokemon, but lose moments. Like, your entire team could be swept. Like, when Lysander's Mineshow has a fucking swords dance up. That shit is terrifying. And that's how I lost a Pokemon. Because I, like, forgot what I was doing. I was having fun. And I tried to stockpile with a Victory Bell. And I was like, yeah, we'll be good. And then Swords Dance Aerial Ace. Everything is flipped over its head. If I didn't have a Mega Ampharos, nothing could have taken those hits. It's just... Every time this kind of stress is so serious, and if you want to save everyone, you kind of feel like you have to go into that mode where you forget about your emotions and just focus on the competitive side to try to win. So that afterwards you can be like, yay, you're all fine. But in the moment you're like, I need to win. I need to, like, preserve everyone's life. And I'm being serious about it. This kind of stress is like, it's very similar patterns to Veterans of Wars. If you think about it, the same stories can be told from actual combat. You want to save your team, but you can't waste time being emotional. They beat the shit out of you in basic training and shit. The most efficient way to save them is to forget about any emotional reason why you want to save them and only think about, in certain cases when you can't save everyone, when you think that. Because sometimes you never think that. Sometimes you're like, no, there's always chance. And sometimes there isn't a chance. You you think about who will be the most effective in battle. Who do you need to go cover? Who can save themselves? Who's good? Whose weakness do you have to cover? And when a sacrifice is needed. You can't sacrifice yourself in a Pokemon game for everyone else's lives. But you sure as hell can sacrifice yourself in war. Don't these sound familiar? Sacking? All that shit? It all has a parallel to real life. In this strange way. I know that people are gonna fucking crucify me for comparing a Pokemon game to war, but if someone immerses themselves to the point where they get clinically depressed from losing someone in a Nuzlocke, like I've heard stories of, it's not that far off. Just because it didn't happen in real life doesn't mean that it didn't happen in some life. This is getting very depressing. I brought fucking morality, I brought ethics and competitive tiredness, role-playing, and fucking war into a debate about Pokemon. What is the fucking reward here, you might be asking? Let's continue to the last reference. Reference 3. Try to follow. I'll go a bit slower. Reference 1 was the Nuzlocke comic, and reference 2 was YouTube. Reference 3 is... wait. Did I talk about Karen? Okay, I did. No, I didn't. I was going to next. Okay, so, spoilers for kylee-nim's black and white Nuzlocke comic here. Also, kind of old spoilers for that one, really, but also really old spoilers for the Heart Gold original Wedlock by Maryland. That's also a spoiler here. Just giving you a bit of time for that. The original Wedlock is something that, it's just like Pro Jared, it's something that everyone who is in Nuzlocke culture should see because it's a huge part of our fan base on YouTube. That run was crazy. And kylee-nim is one of the most popular Nuzlocke comic makers in the world. As far as I'm concerned. I literally think some more people might know kylee-nim than Nuzlocke himself. Ah, my ears. I need fucking water. My ears are just clogged up. I can't fucking hear myself. There we go. Okay. In Chargestone Cave, in kylee-nim's Nuzlocke comic, there was a death. First death in months of making comics, as far as I can tell. The first deaths were all together. It was fucking horrible. But this was a singular death that hadn't happened yet, I'm pretty sure. The first singular death. It was really hard. Why are deaths so much harder in stories? Because the author knows they already happened and can build them up and then drink their fans' tears. Damn you, kylee-nim. The loss was a Zebstrika named Jordan. Jordan was flattened by a Girder's rock slide. A complete accident. It was an awfully amazing moment. It was beautifully drawn. It was horrible. It was to the point where, complete accident, and the hiker with the girder actually, helped, make the whole memorial thing. He didn't have to bury him because he was already buried by rocks. But, yeah. The stress the team went through took several comics to even start to recover. It was immense stress for the characters. We don't hear anything about kylee-nim because she did that probably 2 years ago at the rate that the comic progresses. The run is done first and then you do the comic. So she's been, she probably got over Jordan's death back at comic 2. But the characters in the story are different. They're going through this immense pain. It's horrifying, and it's, there's a ship going on, and that ship sank. Rocks on board. Characters feel immense pain more than non-role-playing could ever feel, blah, blah, blah. For you, the pain depends on how much you develop that character that died, if you're role-playing the right thing. For them, it's much worse, traumatizingly worse. In comics, it's the worst. But what's so different about Jordan? Well, when a Pokemon dies, there's another spectrum-related polarity. Exhibit A. Here come the Heart Gold spoilers. Carrot. Carrot's death was quite possibly the hardest to deal with of any run I've ever seen. Even not classing the comics, really, honestly. I was watching the episode while training up my Bulbasaur Vene, super training, because I thought that, super training was totally the way to go at, like, the earliest level you can. It was in my X blind lock. Oh, God, I hate myself right now. So sick. I had just lost my starter to a fucking lipstick Wobbuffet. I was so pissed off when I saw that Wobbuffet. I thought it was, why is a Wobbuffet wearing lipstick just because it's female? It's like, I told my starter, my Quilladin Link, to punch the shit out of it, or bite it, I think. I was so distracted by the lipstick that I forgot that Wobbuffet does 4 things and 4 things only. Destiny Bond, Safeguard, Counter, and Reflect. I mean, Mirror Coat. And Counter it did, and I lost my starter immediately. The worst timing was, I had already gotten out of that cave. But I said, let's go back inside for a little bit to train up my starter some more. And that's when it happened. Hadn't run to a Wobbuffet before in that cave. I then, after he died, looked up what Quilladin evolved into, and I saw his evolution. I thought that Chespin was a Grass Dark type. There was this whole thing that was going to be like Grass Dark, Water Fighting, and Fire Psychic. And they were going to be like all super effective against each other backwards. It was going to be fucking amazing. And instead, we got, Grass Fighting, which is also Hoenn typing that I love, but I thought that it was going to be a special attacker. I had a modest Quilladin. He was going to be cool, and then he got fat, and I saw that he didn't get any physical moves. I just trained him completely the wrong way. It was bad and modest. Ugh. But I loved my Bulbasaur because it was my Bulbasaur was mimicked right after my Venusaur in Pokemon, which you can see a bit of on my YouTube channel. But I was pissed I lost him, but not emotionally, just because fucking lipstick. I felt like I was so stupid. But I didn't really care for Link. I was at that point, afterwards. I thought that, he's going to Mega Evolve. I was like, train him up to evolve him so I can Mega Evolve the starter. And then I realized that the Gen 6 starters don't get Megas. Yeah. But Carrot's death, and the memorial for Carrot's death, gave me a whole new view on it. Oh my god. I was sitting there at like fucking 1 a.m. or something, just super training. Ugh, I was so bored. I was like, maybe I should just quit. And then I saw Carrot and everything, and I was so moved that I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And I was like, if I leave now, and everyone's death means nothing. And that's going to be a question that you come back to. Carrot was an amazing force of emotion to me, pushing to go, and this is bad. Why? You want to know why this is bad? Because Carrot was a Raticate, a very loved, loving Raticate. One that had lost so many partners in that original wedlock. In fan comics, he was depicted with a distinct persona. Everyone who drew the fan comics of him drew him in the same kind of way. Same nature and everything. Everyone understood how Carrot acted. He was a developed character that was loved by so many people and had been around since the beginning. A fucking Raticate at the Elite Four. Had lost like 4 partners. He was a very developed character. But that's why it's hurt so much. But what happened after? The problem with YouTube is you move on really fast. You have to move on. You had to go to the champion. Or maybe he was at the champion, I forget. He became a martyr. Martyrs are not characters. Martyrs are symbols. Martyrs are ideals, not ideas. People who wave a banner with a martyr's face on it, they abandon all memory of what they actually were and they glorify it. Any memories that they keep are glorified. They use the dead Pokemon for a purpose. You can see this in stories and in movies and history and all this shit. That when someone dies, someone may abuse the people who are faithful to it and everything. Red vs. Blue, to be an example for new season. Saying you have to win for them. He's saying it blindly. I mean, that's what people do, and I think that that's a horrible idea now that I look back on it. You'll see. But what else can we do? They're dead. Why not glorify them and turn them into martyrs? This is where I say you have a choice to make, actually. Don't be fooled, my friends. Dying is not dead. It just plain isn't. You want to know how? Jordan pancakes. What the hell does that mean? Well, in following the traumatic death of Jordan, kylee-nim's fan base was in a fragile state, and kylee-nim loves them being in that state. And did something to provoke them. I can't remember if she started it or if a fan started it or who continued it, but whatever she did and that fan did, saved Jordan from martyrdom. Unintentionally, probably. Preserving his personality and memories forever, with one little joke. She, our fan, posted a picture of his Zebstrika in Pokemon Me and said, "Look, Jordan's safe, he's fine, ha ha ha." That's not the thing, though. What the thing is what happened after it. She or someone reblogged with an edit. They put a pancake on the Zebstrika's head and said, "Jordan pancakes." And the fans revolted. They were so pissed off that she made the joke because they were still recovering from the loss. And then she made the joke again and again and again, kept making the joke. And when, she made Gajinkas and stuff, she made Gajinka for Jordan and all of her other dead Pokemon, and started, doing asks even though they were dead. And when the Nuzlocke high school thing came out on her blog and on someone else's blog, Jordan was there, and he had turned into this kind of joke character where it's like he was Kenny, and they'd be doing the whole thing with the girls or whatever with basketball or something, and then out of nowhere something would just fall on Jordan's Gajinka and he would die, and he'd come back the next panel. Kenny, you get it? It was this funny joke. Jordan was a vital part of the community, probably the most important character, probably even more important than the starter to the fans, because that joke could just be made over and over again. People loved him for it. And because the fans kept making comics of Jordan even after he died, because he kept making the things after he died. What is with my ear right now? I'm so sick. They kept him alive. I mean, clearly he was dead in the run, but you may have heard of remembering someone to keep them alive forever. It actually works. And in a fan collective, it works even more efficiently, because everyone gets the same picture of, a similar picture of Jordan in their own heads, and Jordan is a vital part of the community. But in the run, he's still dead. He died in the run, and he's dead in the run. He can't come back. You can't go back into the run after you die unless you make a ghost character. Everyone so traumatized by it. That's the whole point of the commentary. Jordan's fine. Jordan's a big part of the fan community and has fan art being done of him all the damn time. Just as much as the, live characters. He's kept alive in everyone's hearts because instead of Carrot, where people are just saying, "Win for Carrot, yay!" and everyone stops making comics of Carrot unless he's like a fucking, the little ghost on a hill thing, everyone suddenly forgot what Carrot's personality was. Nobody made any fan comics of him talking to people anymore or anything. If there was a comic of Carrot, it was just Carrot being a ghost saying nothing. That's the thing about martyrs. When you have a character preserved as a martyr, they don't do anything. They're not supposed to do anything. They're dead. They're supposed to just do nothing. But if you keep them alive with a fan base, or in your own concept or whatever, it's so different. It can really keep them alive. The point of this whole thing is that the characters still cry and fight in their name. Characters will probably still martyr them. You don't know that he's totally fine from the inside. On the outside, totally fine. Even has a Gajinka, which is fucking cool. Oh, looks like I have an earring there for a second. They're stuck in this hell world of constant fear, while the ones who die get to live in an adoring fan base. Get a fucking Gajinka and a bunch of shit. That's cool. Sure, the fans draw comics of pictures of the living characters, but unless explicitly stated, most fan comics are post-tense in this community. In Maryland's community, the comics are of stuff that's happening actually in the run, like what they think is happening on a hill somewhere at night, whatever, character development stuff. But with comics, people don't feel like they have the right to actually make scenes of actual content. They're like, no, I'm not going to try to draw her comic for her. They draw stuff that's like unrelated, fourth wall breaking stuff. And what I like to think about that is that Zach, the Gajinka, and Zach, the actual character in the run of Kylie's run, are different. Zach, the Gajinka, who is in the fan comics and the Q&As and everything, is like an actor. And then when he goes on stage, he portrays the character of Zach in the run, and, you know, that character is the actual character who's stuck in the world. Kinda, it's fucking cool, huh? But what's the worst thing that can happen to an actor on set? They get stuck in their character. And their character gets stuck on the stage. A lot of this is probably weird and philosophical and doesn't make a lot of sense, but I want to give you this one theoretical in closing, okay? So, imagine that you are the protagonist. You wake up in a Pokemon world Nuzlocke, but you don't know it's a Nuzlocke. You just run around, have fun, and oh my god, I'm in a Pokemon world, and then bam, someone dies. And you and your team are heartbroken. Maybe you go on a rampage, maybe just cry, maybe do both. Either way, they are lost, and you eventually probably stop trying to hold on to them and let them go, which I hate. But you'd probably do that concept because it's the cliche. You are living inside a theoretical cartridge in this sense. You're living in this closed-off world. And what happens to Pokemon that die in your world? If you're in this game world, well, they leave your world. In your world, they're dead, dead, dead. But, say this happens. Just immerse yourself into this concept. Your Pokemon dies, and they leave the game world. Like, they, go somewhere. They spawn into a, like, white or red velvet, like, fancy guest room. Okay? With nothing but a few couches, TV on the wall, and a camera. No, I don't think we need the camera. Point being, on the TV, it's off when you get there, when your Pokemon gets there. And they're like, what the hell happened? I thought I died. Is this heaven or something? And then the TV turns on. And what's on the TV? A Twitch stream. And this first death Pokemon watches on this delay their death on this weird game screen thing. And hear the commentators and the guests shout out, scream, all this stuff. And they see 3,000 to 30,000 fans in the chat commenting and mourning and celebrating all this stuff. And it's all about them. And they're like, what the hell's going on here? And then, bam, once in a while, Bam and once in a while don't really go together, but it's trippy. And then someone comes and knocks on the door to the guest room. And this Pokemon walks up to the door and opens it and is like, hey, what's up? And they're like, hey, can you do something for me? And they walk out and they pose in this like set for this thing that's called a fan art. And they're like, hey, thanks, I love you, bye. And you're like, I don't know who the hell you were. Come to find out they were one of the people on the stream watching you when you were in the game do stuff. And then they start doing this over and over again. They star in like these fan comic stuff. They get dressed up as a Gajinka and they, get all these thousands of fans adoring them and everything. Heartwarming, right? It's like heaven. You die and then you go and you get a bunch of people loving you and shit. And all this love is what's keeping you alive. How ironic that in the game world, the protagonist and their team are going through complete hell. You, the protagonist, lose another beloved Pokemon. Where they end up? The guest room again. See the same deal and are confused. Then they hear noises at the door. And that first Pokemon, Pokemon number 1, comes in with like confetti all over them and like a party hat and dressed up as a Gajinka. They're human. And they have like 10,000 fans drawing them behind them and like waving as they go back into the room. And Pokemon 2 is like, what? I thought you were dead. What the hell's going on? And Pokemon 1 is like, hey, you gotta try this out. There's tens of thousands of fans out there keeping me alive. And they love us and everything. And they're look on the screen. You can watch. Oh, that's your death on the screen. Ha ha ha. And you can look at the 10,000 people celebrating and crying and everything. You'd think this be the same reaction, but number 2, you're forgetting, experienced the trauma of dealing with number 1's death. So number 2 starts to flip out. What? You've been on vacation while we've all been risking our lives in your name? Pokemon 1 is like, well, yeah. Pokemon 2 is like, they wish that they could talk, not Pokemon character 1, because now they're Gajinka. 2 wishes they could talk to the one still in the game cartridge and say, no, I'm fine, don't freak out or something, but they can't. And the ones in the game cartridge are unaware. Eventually, number 2 settles down, enjoys the fan love, and lets them keep them alive. They watch the stream with number 1. Then the league. The league. Yeah. Number 2 and number 1 watch. 1 dies in the Elite Four, and 3 die in the champion battle. It's horrible, but they finish. You, the protagonist, beat the game with 2 Pokemon left. You, after all of that pain, have triumphed. What did you accomplish? Why, you made the lost lives worth something. Someone came to you halfway through your run and said, I can remove your curse. I can make it so that no one ever dies again. And your response is, no. I will not just stop this. If I do, and go back to a happy world where people don't die, then the ones who did die, their deaths will mean nothing. At Victory Road, they came again and said, take your sacred ash and revive 1 Pokemon. And you respond yet again, no. If I just get number 1 back, then number 2's death will be for nothing. What a rude awakening you are in for. You win the league. You and your 2 remaining. You hit the button at the Hall of Fame and suddenly get enveloped in a heavenly light. You won! You completed the challenge! You went through all this pain, and for what? Why, glory and peace of mind, knowing that all that pain was for something. What for? Why? Being champion, right? Right? Yeah. You and your partners spawn in the guest room. The 4 who are dead are there too. Everyone shares the confusion. And then 1 and 2 walk in with noisemakers and cheer for their victory, along with 20,000 fans on the Twitch stream blaring out the speakers. But the 4 aren't happy. Would you be happy? You shout out, you aren't dead? You just had this revelation that you did this for them, and then they just waltz right in the door, looking fine and celebrating that you won? Like, as if you were some kind of show? What happened? Number 1's like, We came here after we died, and all these people said they were watching our run. They wanted to keep me alive with this stuff called fan art. You twitch. You mean to tell me that all this time we suffered, we went through fucking hell to make your suffering mean something, and you've been fine? Number 2. Yeah, but I mean, you guys were entertaining to watch. Number 2, what the fuck? Number 3 was pissed off for like 4 months. He got paired with a new partner and everything. Yeah, the fans love you too. Honestly, way better chemistry than I had. God fucking damn it, says number 3. You say, what, this was all for nothing? You can imagine the confusion. Yes, if you care for your partners and keep them alive in your thoughts and content beyond their death, which is what I say we should all do. We should all try to keep them alive as long as we can. You are effectively invalidating the point to their deaths and the living character's suffering. This brings everything to full circle. When is the suffering most frequent? Deaths. When are you most competitive in battles? When are you most bonded with your team? When you win or when you relax and take a bit of vacation? What were the most enjoyable experiences? Was it winning? Or that time in Heart Gold and Soul Silver where the guy took a group photo of you and your entire team? Or looking back at the collage of everyone coming, going, and evolving? Was it winning after losing half your team to a Swords Dance Mindfu? Was that the time you were most in contact and deep connection with your team? Or was it sitting on that bench and admiring the fountains? Was it sweeping the grass gym? Or was it playing Pokemon to me? Was it the walk to the fame? Or the sight of the league itself? Which of these times did you truly feel the most connection with your guys and girls and whatever? Think about this. For many of you, not all, but many of you may remember being most happy in those times where you forgot about the fighting. When you forgot about winning. When you relaxed and had fun. When you did a contest. Did a contest or a musical. Won a ribbon. Shipped teammates together. Doing wireless battles with them. Nuzlocks are intended to be emotional. Hard mode is expected to be hard. The two do not go together as well as we think. Fellow Nuzlockers, I call on you to make a landmark decision. Decide if you love your characters enough to understand that there's no reason to put them through hell if you want them to all live on in the end. Or, well, I propose that we stop Nuzlocking. Yes, stop Nuzlocking. But continue to play on hard mode. But remove death. Have comas, disqualifications, anything but deaths. Deaths do not make your characters more developed. Time does. Attention. The reason we care so much about Nuzlocke Pokemon is not their fragility. It's that we spend more time than usual with specific teammates. It's that Rule 3, the names, the natures, the characteristics, the art, the story. That is what makes us care. A story does not need death. Do not let tradition fool you. If you are watching a Nuzlocke for the deaths, which, I admit it, most of us are, then we are submitting to the goddamn murder porn. Like that one fucking anime. I hate that shit. Getting an emotional high from a loss, not thinking about the futility of it. Play hard mode runs, where you cannot use a Pokemon after it faints. And sure, roleplay, immerse yourself, do all this stuff, but make a story even, but the death is not the challenge. Understand this. Them dying is not the challenge. Not being able to use them after they die is the challenge. Disqualification is the challenge. Death is not the challenge. Play knockout runs where it's like a game of knockout. coma locks, where the Pokemon who faint go into a coma but are fine. That way, winning the challenge means something, because it brings them all back to the awake world. Coma mode, where the victory means that everyone who was KO'd gets to continue their life, but only if you win. That's an incentive. An incentive is not revenge. Revenge is a shit incentive. Glory is a shit incentive. After they die, if you said there's nothing you could do to get them back, then what's the point of going through those final 5 battles? It's stupid. It is stupid to think that winning Victory Road is going to make it all better. Winning the Elite Four. Fuck it. Yeah. Doesn't that sound so much more caring, the coma run, than saying they die and winning just stops death? It's like, yeah, I won. Now things no longer die. Instead of, if you want a partner's death to matter, then say yes to that question. I could make this all stop. All the deaths. Do you want me to do that? You may answer no at first, but after hard enough death, let the loss teach you how futile the challenge is with death involved. Let losses teach you, not lead you down a stupidly barbaric path of a head-on charge. Stop deaths in Nuzlocke. It's not the point. The point is disqualification and the catching rules. Do not let characters suffer for your enjoyment. Thank you so much for hearing my testament if you heard it all the way through. I only hope you can all make stories without senseless pain. You do not have to imitate real life to make something realistic. Make a world better than ours. You have the power to create any kind of world when you write stories. Don't be stuck replicating our shitty one. Use your power for fun, happiness, awesomeness. Sure, have violence, have choreographed fights and badassery and victory, but don't have bloody wars, senselessly brutal backstories and murderers if you can. You have the power to make worlds without our world's faults. Have sex and OTP shipping and gender or sexuality craziness. Have any kind of creatures you want in your stories. Build insane worlds, but do not replicate ours for the sense of realism. Be progressive. Change so your characters can have fun. If you like pain and suffering, make characters who like pain and suffering too. Suffering that like it too. Don't make the one kid who gets all the shit put onto them just so you can watch. Characters are people, my friends. We are all just concepts. One day our lives may be controlled by a writer, or one day we may control the lives as writers. Artificial intelligence may prove a way to bring your characters to a sense of independence and autonomous sentience without you needing to think for them. When that happens, when your characters can walk around without you needing to tell them what to do, do you really want them to be pissed off at you like number 3 and the rest of the team were? I wouldn't want Taylor pissed off at me, so I made up for her shitty backstory I made when I was 14 or 13. Now she's my most beloved and understanding characters, going from being a total stereotypical bitch to being one of my most sensible mother figures I could ever hope to create. I love my characters, and that is why I no longer Nuzlocke. Hard mode. Play hard mode. Knockout tournament style, tagouts, coma runs, immersions, blind runs. Only 6 Pokemon can be owned at total at a time. No healing runs. Anything but deaths. Deaths do not make it fun. Challenges makes it fun. And immersion makes it fun. Come to your senses, friends. Spread this shit like wildfire. Let's put an end to this nonsense and realize the power we have. Instead of a blind Alpha Sapphire no healing pairlock, I'm going to be doing a semi-blind Alpha Sapphire no items paired coma run. That way, I'm not going to be an asshole to anybody. No dark ride nightmare run, no sleep deaths or anything like that. Just, if they faint, they pass out until I win. Don't make martyrs. It's disgraceful. Keep characters alive when they die. Dying is not death. Understand this? Understand this. It will be useful when the quantum computers come. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. I hope you make a decision. Pat out.